showing out, making moves, no doubt. FFA pride, it's what we're all about. From classroom dreams to real world flair, we got the stories you won't find anywhere. Beyond the jacket where the stories unfold, voices of the future, fearless and bold. Tune in now, let the passion ignite. It's more than a jacket, it's a way of life. Beyond the jacket where passion meets purpose.
Today's episode is all about curiosity, communication, and the power of education to shape action. Our guest took a question many people ask: how do we actually inspire change, and turn it into a hands-on project that blends agriculture, climate awareness, and media. Their work reminds us that leadership doesn't always start with answers, but with asking the right questions. Let's go beyond the jacket with Nicholas and Lakeisha. Okay, I'm excited already. I sometimes am not always super privy to when we have the topics because I'm kind of just the host that shows up. So Paige does all of the back end work when it comes to that. But why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and your FFA chapter, and I'm excited to learn about what we've got going on.
Awesome. Lakeisha can go first.
Hi, my name is Lakeisha Quitog. I'm a second-year member at Waipahu High School FFA on the island of Oahu.
Yeah, my name is Nicholas Nishimura. I am a third-year member of the same Waipahu FFA chapter on the island of Oahu. And Lakeisha and I are actually serving on Hawaii's state officer team right now. So it's really cool to be here, not only as representatives of our chapter, but also as representatives of our state.
That's so exciting. I didn't even know that. That's a surprise for me. Awesome. And congratulations on such a high honor in a leadership role. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
FFA has been a part of my life since middle school and on throughout, even as an alumni member now. Same for Lacey. When did your interest in FFA or agriculture start? Was it family? Was it in the classroom? When did that start for both of you?
Yeah, I guess I'll start off first since I am a year older than Lakeisha. It all started when we were in middle school. So we were at Waipahu Intermediate School, and a great advisor who I think to this day is someone who I still consider a mentor and someone who I still go to for help, especially now that we're serving in state office and we're serving a larger demographic of FFA members. His name is Mr. Ken Kazuma, and he just moved to Castle High School just this school year, so he's not at Waipahu Intermediate anymore. But he's actually been the pioneer of agriscience for the state of Hawaii. And the state of Hawaii, for numerous years now, I think since 2018, has sent up multiple competitors across multiple categories for agriscience. And I think a lot of the credit is due to our advisor, Mr. Ken Kazuma, who not only pulled us into FFA, but also encouraged us to take on such opportunities like agriscience to really get us involved in agriculture and agricultural education.
Yeah, so Nick actually recruited me back when I was a 7th grader and he was an 8th grader. I have no ties to agriculture at all, so it was a bit of a challenge to get me to even step into the ag classroom for the first time. But I think being in there and seeing how many people were inspired to learn more, I started my first agriscience project all the way back in middle school, and I've been doing it every year since then. And I think what really makes me stay, and I think what makes Nick stay as well, is the community that is in FFA. I think all that we do is for others and to serve them and to make the world a better place.
Oh, I love this. And I love that you guys, I think we've actually, Paige, I think we have mentioned in an episode before how we were like, we really want to get somebody from Hawaii because it would just be so cool because I think it was Alaska. When we talked with the one FFA member from Alaska, we were like, oh, it'd be so cool to just hear all the different, like vast different ways that agriculture is. And we then went on a tangent about how we all want to visit Hawaii because it just looks absolutely beautiful. But that's so cool to have you guys here and to just be able to talk to you guys because I know when I was in FFA and I saw a Hawaii jacket at National Convention, I was like, man, like those kids had to travel to be here. And so the commitment that you guys have to it is honestly so incredible. So that makes me more excited for this episode. So as far as the Hawaii agriculture demographic and just how much different it is, what was it that got you guys into the climate and sustainability aspect of it particularly?
You can go first.
All right. I think what brought me into FFA too was my interest in the environment. A lot of the times in my science class, we always talk about climate change. It's one of the biggest issues of our time, right? And going into that and learning how agriculture is so deeply connected to climate change, in whereas it's one of its biggest contributors to climate change, but also the industry that may suffer most from it, made me want to be more involved in local agriculture, and especially in the context of climate change and getting people to actually act on it as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, it goes along more of the same lines. We've both been involved in agricultural education for 5 years now. But what's larger than that is we've both been living in Hawaii for most of our lives. And when you're surrounded by such an amazing climate and an amazing culture that's rooted in ecological history and knowledge of people caring for the land, we call that concept malahama aina, where people really care for the land and the land takes care of them. It really means a lot to us to care for the climate. And when you think about the history of Hawaii, how there's been a culture here of Native Hawaiians who have been here for over 2,000 years, and they were able to sustain themselves off of the land that they lived on through constant care and through constant attention to the matters of land management and resource use and the climate. And we look at today where that landscape is vastly different, and now we're importing over 90% of our food. The issues of climate and food security and agriculture here in our state become that much more apparent and obvious to us, especially as students enrolled in ag education. And I think for both of us, what's unique about our story is that we don't come from a rural or agricultural background. The city we live in and the city that we've lived in for all of our lives is very urban. And we don't produce our food, to be quite honest with you. Most, if not all of the food that I eat every day comes from the US mainland or from another country. And when you live this sort of life and you understand agriculture and you understand the global landscape of food security and sustainability, and you live a life that isn't very food secure or doesn't have a lot of sustainability inside of it, we're really inspired to take that step to create real change, not only for the rest of the world, but especially inside of our own community where food insecurity and climate change are such huge issues.
Oh my gosh, there's so many parts of what you both just said that I think are extremely valuable in their own right. Lakeisha, you talked about how climate change and how agriculture might contribute to it, but we're also one of the industries that is working to combat it with best management practices and our nitrogen footprints and things of that nature. We are lessening our inputs, and I wish more consumers knew that. And as far as Nicholas, like you said, our food security and our national security is so important. And producing our own food is crucial to keeping that happening. And I live in the continental United States. You guys live in Hawaii. I'm sure that's a totally different landscape for agriculture. And through your project, you're able to educate consumers on these issues and how you're combating them in your town, at your home. How or what inspired you to do educational media along with your agriscience research?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, me and Nick are really involved with like talking to others, communication, those connections that we all have with each other. And we wanted to see how we can use those connections and educate others on climate and help and use that education to help motivate them as well. So in our project, we use two types of educational media, informational, which is just the cold, hard facts, and more emotional things that tie to like, for example, it could be um, if you drive this many miles, it produces this much carbon. Or the emotional part would be every time you drive a car, you're hurting the planet, something like that. And so we saw those different nuances of education and really wanted to see it, to see how it acts into our peers as well.
Yeah, and I think living in Hawaii, everyone that we talk to from not only FFA but from pretty much anywhere else in the world always thinks that we're so blessed and so lucky to live in Hawaii, which we really are, and which I will admit is one of the best places in the world. People come here for their vacations, and we get to live here and spend our lives here, and do things here every day that people across the world don't have the opportunity to do. But what living in Hawaii presents us with is not only just the rose-colored glasses, amazing beaches, great sunsets. We also live with food insecurity, and we live with the fact that Hawaii, as a tiny island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, feels the greatest ramifications of climate change, from sea level rise to invasive species to monocrop agriculture. The effects of climate change in Hawaii are vastly more apparent than they are in some other places in the world. Not to say that other places of the world don't feel the effects of climate change too, but living here in Hawaii and being youth involved in education, we really wanted to take both of the problems that we see in the climate and our unique perspective and position as high school students to kind of blend an agri-science project together.
I really love that last statement you said, because that is so incredibly true. Because I myself, as an Ohioan who's landlocked, have dreamed of going to Hawaii as a vacation because it just looks so beautiful. And you can very much get in that mindset of like, oh, they're so lucky to live there. It's beautiful. But then you have to realize that is something that's different because, you know, let's say we notice a 3-inch increase of sea level. To me in Ohio, that means nothing in my mind. I can't conceptualize the change that makes. But to you guys, that is something that could drastically change, you know, the way that you guys even live. So I really think that's so important. I am somebody who uses social media and the internet to educate people. And I think it is so important because when you have those conversations, you realize how little people know, but how loudly they'll speak on something. And it can be a little bit frustrating. Was there a moment that you guys had like a realization of like, wow, even though we're not growing our own food or live on a farm, this communication is just as powerful as the hands-on agricultural work?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of experiences like that. And, you know, despite the fact that Hawaii is importing 90% of its food, it still has a very strong agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
The Native Hawaiian culture has taught people to rely and value the land and value being self-sustainable. And I think our experiences in agriculture, where we've gotten to meet generational farmers who are Native Hawaiian, who are practicing the same agricultural techniques used thousands of years ago and feel a deep connection to the land and what they're doing, is something that really made us value the importance of these perspectives and really take a deeper look at agriculture and why it's not only important to feed people, but it's also important to pay homage to the rich cultural history that some others may have.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, a lot of people, when they hear aloha, they say it's hello or goodbye, but it actually means the breath of life, right? It's understanding that you take care of the person next to you and they'll take care of you. And working and being in a community with those connections that are so rich and deep, understanding that we all are all of this together, you know, and especially when you look at when you look at education from that standpoint, it really is just we're all learning together, and together we can make real change.
Yeah, I think that's so real. And when you look at the different angles and how to analyze that data and put it to work in real time, we've talked about your inspiration for your project, but how did you conduct your project? Talk us through this step by step. That way we can better understand how you conducted your research, what you're planning on doing with that research, even after state office and maybe into college or career, whatever you so choose. How are you going to continue to build on this information you've gained?
Yeah, so the logistics of the project and the step-by-step process is kind of complicated, so I'll try and explain it as simply and as fastly as possible. But essentially what we did was we reached out to a bunch of teachers, not only inside of agriculture, but outside of agriculture as well. And we asked them to send this introductory survey link to their students. And, you know, we had about 200 students fill out this introductory link and agree to be a part of our survey or be a part of our study. And what that first link / survey did was it established a couple of demographics. It established the age of our participants, the genders of our participants, their perception of climate change, how important they value climate change and other agricultural issues, and if they were enrolled in agricultural education before. And what we kind of did with these data points was we used them to sort them into diverse groups of people. An equal number of boys and girls, an equal number of ages, and an equal number of students who both value the issue of climate change and who both think that climate change isn't an important issue at all. And it allowed us to basically control these groups and make sure that they were diverse with diverse perspectives. We sorted them into a couple of different groups, and we gave them or exposed them to different types of educational media, as Lakeisha was kind of explaining earlier, if she wants to revisit that.
Yeah, just to reiterate, we gave them 2 types of information and we distribute them in 2 ways. The 2 types of information particularly were informational and emotional stimuli. The informational things were the cold hard facts, right? If you drive X amount of miles, it emits X amount of carbon dioxide. But the emotional side of that would be if you drive a car, you're hurting the environment, something like that, right? It's trying to see what motivates them more. Like, do they like being told straight up, or do they need to be motivated by guilt or all these other emotions at play? And we distribute them through either email or Instagram. And the reason we did this is we wanted to see what would it look like between a platform most of our peers usually use versus a platform that not many usually check. And we got to see those in our results later on in the project.
Yeah, and after exposing them to this media, our real data point came from measuring their action. And it was really simple. We created a Google Doc or like a Google spreadsheet, and we sent one spreadsheet out to each participant group. And what this allowed them to do was log the climate action that they were taking over time. So we observed them over a 2-week period. We would give them educational or emotional media every single day and allow our participants to fill out the spreadsheet to see if our educational media impelled them to take action. And in that introductory survey I kind of talked about earlier, we also took a measure of what amount of people or what types of people were engaging in climate positive action already, doing things like taking cold showers or eating vegetarian meals or doing public transportation instead of driving a car to school or work every day. And we wanted to measure the effects of our educational stimuli on being able to cause them to take further action or to continue climate positive action in their daily lives. So that's kind of our project in a nutshell, if that all made sense. I know it's kind of complex.
Yeah, no, you guys definitely have a lot of different facets, but it's just like you are completely completing that like scientific, I'm trying to remember the word of it, but it's like when you have you went from, hypothesis all the way to the entire
scientific
thing.
method.
There it is. Sorry, it's been over a decade since I've been in school. Okay, give me some slack. But yeah, like you guys really completed that. And I think that's so cool to think of it too, because you really did take that question, circling back to the beginning of like, okay, we need to do something about climate change. Why don't people care enough to do something? So let's conduct and see not only what they're currently doing, let's see what would work best to get them to potentially care, if you like to put it in that kind of terms. And then let's track to see what they do. I'm very curious to know, as a science-brained girly, what was something that surprised you the most from your research?
I think for me, the thing that surprised me the most was kind of the results of our experiment. And I don't know if you want us to get into those results now. I'm sure there was a separate question or group of questions.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. We want to know all the things.
What we found simply was that the large majority of participants, we had about 200, a very small minority of them actually took any action, or at least recorded action over the course of our experiment. I think of 200 participants, we had maybe 30 to 40 participants log action for any one of the days. And I think to me that was shocking in of itself. It showed that students, regardless of how much they care about climate or climate change, across different age groups, across different genders, across different exposures to agriculture and climate education, really failed to kind of participate in our experiment. And that's kind of a result in of itself. And it allowed us to derive the conclusion that a lot of people really don't care about the climate, or at least don't care about it enough to spend 5 minutes of their day participating in a study. And really the participation in our experiment was very simple. Participants just had to log something daily and maybe take 5 seconds out of their day to do so. And I think the fact that only a small minority of participants actually engaged with our experiment was a result in of itself. And it just went to show that the students like us who care about the climate and care about agriculture and are engaging with students who also care about these same topics, the large majority of students don't. So really at the end of our experiment, our next steps and something that we're really hoping to find out is how can we make the vast majority of people care? And I think, not to get into politics here, but politics is a very good example of this. There's a small minority of people who really care about politics and who care about the economy. And the vast majority of people, not just students, but adults as well, really don't. So when it comes to these important issues that people like FFA members care about and that they're so passionate about advocating for and working on, I think a lot of what we fail to realize is that it's only a very small amount of people who are doing this work. So the real challenge is not doing the work, but creating a unified front of a large majority of people who care about it as well, because I think that's when the real change is created. And that's kind of what we hope to achieve now that we've completed our research.
And for me, at least, another interesting part or surprising part of our experiment was the role agriculture education played in the people who actually completed tasks. It was a big facet of our experimentational design. In the beginning survey Nicholas mentioned earlier, we also tracked whether or not they participated in any form of agricultural or environmental education. And we wanted to see if that resulted in more outliers, the people that actually did stuff. But when we reviewed all the data at the end, we realized there wasn't really any link between agriculture and environmental education and the people that actually acted. But what we did find is the people that cared more about the climate initially and said they found climate change as a huge problem were the outliers. They're the people that acted. And maybe now agriculture education doesn't make people care about the climate, but I truly think it is going to be the big thing that we're going to change to help people to get on that unified front, to get people to care. And especially in Hawaii right now, there's big talks of graduate high school. You need to have you need to be in environmental education or have that certification that you participated in that. I think it's going to be really cool in the upcoming years.
No, that's awesome. I've always said that any public education form needs to have a form of environmental or agricultural education. I think it should be a requirement, just like in English or math is. I think it's so valuable to know how to protect our industry, to protect our earth, because we only have one. You only get one chance, kind of like your project continues to reinforce. And I know, Nicholas, you said we weren't getting into politics, but actually my next question was just about that. So I'm sorry to run you down that rabbit hole, but how are you connecting the education part, Lakeisha? There's change there and it's happening. It might not be happening as fast as we want it to, but we know it will in the future. You've connected your study. How are you taking these parts into public policy and advocating for change in that aspect? Because we've realized that there needs to be a change, and your study has well beyond your years proven this. What are you doing with those results now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what we do inside of the Blue Jacket and what we do as a part of the Future Farmers of America organization has a lot to do with agriculture, and it has a lot to do with education. But what's really special about FFA and what our biggest takeaway is that FFA has given us the skills and platform to really become civically engaged citizens of not only our country, but of the community that we call home. And as students, we realize the power of our voices. Lakeisha and I are 15 and 16 years old, and we're turning 16 and 17 this year. But we realize that there's a very short window of time where our voices are coming from a very special place. It's coming from the youth perspective. And being on this podcast, it goes to show that there are people out there who want to hear the youth and who want to listen to what they have to say. And what we're doing now is we're able to take this data and both inside and outside of the Blue Jacket, use it as evidence to show the policymakers and the change makers and the people who have prominent voices in our community that agricultural education is something worth investing in. And what we're hoping to do this year as a part of state office, now that our legislative session is starting up, is to secure appropriated funding for FFA and really affiliate our state to make sure that every student already involved in agricultural education has access to opportunities in the Blue Jacket. We really want to see agricultural education expanded, and we're even talking to people like the Department of Education superintendent for our state about creating an environmentally conscious school curriculum for all students to be knowledgeable of agriculture and environmental topics.
Yeah, and despite that, change comes very slowly, but I think what we can do as students right now is be the advocates. I really think when it comes to climate change and that we can do ourselves, it's a ripple effect. If you start to care, then the people around you start to care, the people around them start to care. And I think that was also one of the biggest aims of our project as well. How can we engage someone so they can engage others? How can we educate people to help them understand how important climate change is, how important agriculture is, and connected they are together, and how can we use that and those networks we've built through FFA and through other organizations as well, be able to create change in our small way right now.
Absolutely. I think that's huge. And that goes back to FFA being so big on education, but also communication and having those conversations, because sometimes it can get really, I don't want to say depressing, but you can get discouraged when you don't see that change happen quickly. Because, to you guys, I'm sure when you first were finding this data, you're like, okay, but how do we get these people to care? Because like we need to get people to care about climate change. It's happening whether we like it or not. And how do you not care? And it's frustrating. But I think just having those conversations and making more people aware of it is big in of itself, even if it can't get to policy and change right this second. Just making people more aware of what's actually happening. And it's something that you can do every single day with just advocating like you guys are right now. It's like, hey, guess what? We didn't come from heavy agriculture backgrounds, but we took FFA and we are taking this data and we are doing this with it because we care about this planet. And I really love hearing more about Hawaii and just the I don't know, I feel like it's such a more, I don't want to say spiritual, but it's just that just love for the earth and giving back to it. I think that's what a lot of people need to take from this, because I always joke with people that I get really nerdy about rotational grazing when it comes to cattle, because that's what I raise. And I always joke that I'm like, I treat my land really well because it treats me well. And I feel like I kind of sound like a nerd saying it, but it is truth. I mean, when I'm not overpopulating my grasses and I'm rotationally grazing them, I can feed my cows off of them longer and I have healthy pastures, which is better for the environment. So that long tangent just goes to show that those little tiny actions and those conversations are really important. And I think what you guys are doing are really freaking cool. And then when you drop the bomb that you're 16, 17, or like going to be 16, 17 is crazy, because I thought you guys had both graduated the way you guys were speaking. You guys are just very, very well communicative and just very impressive young people. It's always crazy when I get to talk to students like yourselves.
I want to go off on a tangent, Lacey, just about what you just said. I want to totally run down a different direction. I want to know how state officers are elected and how you are currently in high school at a younger age, and serving as a state officer as well. Because I know for the state of Florida, you have to be, it's your senior year, you're graduating. And then you take a gap year, if you will, if you were going to a college or university, and you serve our state on their state board. I want to know this process. I couldn't imagine being this well-spoken and this mature. I'm not that much older than you, but I know I definitely wasn't at 16 years old able to speak so fluently like both of you. Educate me.
The state of Hawaii and our FFA, like we've been explaining and sharing through the whole episode, the state of Hawaii is very different from the mainland US. Our state of agriculture is very different. Our state of climate is very different. And the same thing applies to how we run our Future Farmers of America Association. And quite honestly, it goes to show the challenges that we have here in the state. All of our state officers right now, except for one, are in high school. And it's really nuts when we go up to nationals and we're meeting with other state officers and they're 5 or 6 years older than us, pursuing their degrees in college and having so much more experience in FFA than us, at least in terms of time. And I think to answer your question about how state officers get elected here, it's very different. We don't have a nominating committee. We're lucky as a state association if we get 6 people to volunteer for the state officer slots. Because in this year, when Lakeisha and I were both elected, we originally only had 4 people apply for state office, and we had to find 2 emergency hires to fill the other 2 positions. And Lakeisha and I now, serving as secretary and president, we're really looking to change that. And I think what we need to do as a state, if we want more people to be engaged in FFA and to be so passionate that they choose to take the steps and accept the opportunities of something like state office, is to really use education and use the power of our voice to make other people care about the same issues that we care about. And I think it's really cool to be talking about our experiences as state officers and citizens in Hawaii alongside our agri-science experience, because it shows that all of these things are interconnected. And state office here is very different. I know in states like Florida and California, you have dozens, if not hundreds of kids applying to these positions. And here in Hawaii, we're lucky if we get 6 applicants to those spots. And just this year, Lakeisha and I have been able to go to different chapters and we've been able to talk to kids and encourage them to take up these opportunities. So now, when Lakeisha and I are going into our junior and senior year of high school, we're actually not only having the opportunity to be able to rerun for our state officer positions for the upcoming year, but also work with an entirely new team of people because we've been able to inspire others to kind of take up the state officer roles. I don't know if Lakeisha wants to talk more about the election process because I didn't really hit on it. I kind of just went on another tangent. But if she wants to cover that, that's cool.
So at our state convention, we only have one delegate session, so we take care of all of the amendments to the Constitution, and we elect our state officers then and there. So essentially, it's pretty simple. You wait on the side, you give your 2 to 3 minute speech, and the delegates, 2 delegates from every chapter, they have like ping pong paddles with their chapter name, and if they want to vote for you, they'll raise their paddle. And sometimes they do blind election, but it's really simple, especially because not many people run. I'm pretty sure Nick was the only person who had competition when he ran for state office, but most of the positions were like guaranteed shoo-ins too.
This is
okay.
insane.
So I just out
to
of
me.
curiosity, because that like me and you both, we are from very ag heavy states. Florida and Ohio are very big FFA states, and so I'm going back over a decade to my like state FFA convention experience, thinking of how big that is, and now I'm just so curious of how just vastly different Hawaii is. So how many kids are in the FFA chapter that you are in currently?
I'm gonna say.
Great question.
Okay, I want to say 30, but I want to say like 20 active.
Okay,
that's
not
real.
too
Mine.
terrible. Okay.
I'm in Florida. My chapter wasn't huge. We probably had around 30 to 40 students and maybe 20 super active kids in our chapter. But what I think is insane is, in all honesty, I ran for state office and was not voted in by our electing committee. And looking back, incredibly thankful that I get to now have this podcast and connect back as an alumni member. But I screened in Florida. We have a screening or interview process. There was over 34 kids there. That's insane to your 4 or your 6, and being able to compare and contrast, kind of like Nicholas and you both, Lakeisha, have said throughout this entire episode, it's vastly different. And being able to connect with students from all over the nation helps me become well-versed in what this organization is. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not the same from every state. We might all wear the same blue jacket, but we've all had different experiences here. And based on your experience, what's a piece of advice you would give to a younger FFA member in the state of Hawaii or abroad that wants to be like you? Because I am 110% sure there is individuals looking up to you right now and admiring your path and want to fill your shoes one day. So what is a piece of valuable advice you would give to a younger member to round out your episode today?
Yeah, I guess I'll start and give Lakeisha some time to think. But a quote by is, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And I think today, as we look at not only agriculture, but we look at so many different sectors of our American life, there's a lot of change happening right now, and a lot of change that people are upset about. And as much as we see Twitter posts and Instagram reels and TikToks about people being so upset over some of the things that are happening in our country and happening in our agricultural industry, it's a very small amount of people who are taking the necessary steps to create the change that they want to see. And I think for us, we've had a very unique path. And when we meet people from other states and we tell them about our state election process, I think to some degree they discredit some of the work that we've done and some of the effort that it's taken to get to where we are today. They think, wow, you had no competition running for state office. If I was in Hawaii, I would be a state officer. I could be state president. And I could be at the very top of FFA in your state. And here in my state, there's so much more competition and it's so much more difficult. And while, yes, there may be more competition, I think that Hawaii as a state should not be discredited. And I know you guys aren't discrediting FFA.
No, I agree with you. Keep going. No, you're not. No, I totally agree. FFA is the pinnacle of agricultural leadership. And no matter what state you're in, I totally agree with you that you are capable and you've put in your skills and your time to be in the position you are in. Don't ever discredit yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think going up to nationals and meeting some of these people. And just like you said, hearing about their experiences and hearing about how their perception of FFA and how their version of FFA is so different from ours really shows us some of the difficulties that other people may face. For us, the difficulty lies in finding the people passionate and taking the necessary steps of action to create the change they want to see in the world. But for other people in FFA, the real challenge comes with not having the platform nor opportunities to be able to create the change that they want to see in the world. And for me, as someone who wants to be a change maker, and Lakeisha, who wants to be a change maker as well, we're lucky to have the platform and opportunity to create the change that we as individuals want to see in the world. But we may not be lucky enough to have a group of people large enough to create that change and necessitate that change that we want to see in the world. And the challenge for us comes with not advocating for the change, not running for state office, not winning nationals for agriscience. The real challenge is making people care. And I think to all the people across the FFA landscape who may have a harder time getting state office opportunities or winning a national championship, realize that you have people around you who care about the issues and the perspectives that you do. And if you really want to create change and you really want to be a leader, it's about unifying those people for one common effort. And if there's something that you're really passionate about and you have the ability to connect people and inspire them to take those necessary steps of change that you're taking, you can create change and those opportunities will come. And I think that's the lesson that I'll leave the podcast with. But I'll hand it off to Lakeisha.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I live by is you are your own limit, right? We're both not from agricultural backgrounds, as we said previously. And I think if you yourself cannot see yourselves in the positions that we are in, then you'll never achieve it. If you think you can't pass legislation, then you'll never pass it. I really believe if you can think you can do it, then it'll happen. All that work, it all starts with your mindset and how you go into things. Especially like if, for example, like I was a woman, my family didn't really support me going into agriculture as well. And like, if I thought that I could do it, so I continue to do it. And I think when you achieve these or aim for these higher goals, it really is going to come back to yourself and how much you're willing to push through all these challenges, push through people saying you can't do it, and think it and do it.
I love both of your guys' answers. And I just want to go back to yours, Nicholas, for just a second, because it breaks my heart a little bit, because I feel like the way you said the part about people saying that, well, if I was in Hawaii and didn't have this kind of competition, I could run it. I feel like you say that from experience as someone has said that to you. And it just guts me, because sitting here with you guys, you are two of the most well-spoken individuals, and you can just, the passion oozes out of both of you. And I think you are more than qualified to be exactly where you're sitting. And I think I'm going to be seeing a lot more of you, even though you are literally on an island. I think I am going to hear your names in the future for sure, because you can feel the passion that you guys have for agriculture. And that's what it's all about. And so I hope you take away from that you guys are meant to be here. You deserve to be here. And I am very grateful that FFA has two individuals like you to be at the forefront and trying to elicit that change that we need. And you guys just remind us that it doesn't always start with a solution. It starts with that first understanding of people. And your guys' work has showed how agriculture, education, and communication intersect in powerful ways, and how students can lead meaningful conversations about our future. So thank you guys again for taking the time out of your day to come on to Beyond the Jacket. And for the listeners, I hope you guys follow their journey as well and tune in for next week's episode.